Okay. Let me know if everything is sorted. Am I blurrier than usual, or is this how blurry I normally am? Okay, so we are going to sketch a graph. Okay, so it is f of x is equal to 3 minus x. Can we see that? Hopefully, you still can't hear me. Can anyone else from the participants hear me? Yeah, Azra, you can watch it later when it's posted if you can't hear. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. Okay, cool. So let me go. We're going to sketch. Okay, cool. We're going to sketch this graph. F of x equals 3. What? Equals 3 minus x. Okay. 3 minus x. Okay, remember when we say f of x, yeah, if we say f of x, we're just saying y, right? Okay, so that's short. They want us to draw the sketch of this graph, but the domain is between -3 and 1. Okay, I don't know if you can see how I've drawn my domain here. We have a square bracket and we have a circular bracket. Do we remember what that means? Remember when we did classification of numbers, integers, real numbers, when we did all of those, we learned how to write intervals in set notation and interval notation. And when we use a square bracket, that means included. And when we use a circle bracket, that means not including. Okay. Not included. Okay, so that's just a quick reminder. Okay, cool. So let's draw this graph. So we know that we have a straight line because in the form y equals mx plus c, our x is our second value, but we can rearrange that. Okay, so this is actually y is equal to -x plus 3. Okay, so we know what our m is. We know our m is -1, our gradient. And we know our y-intercept is going to be 3 because we have a 3 as our constant here. Okay, so if we were to draw it, we know some points. We know we have a y-intercept of 3, so let's call this 0, 3. And we know we have a negative gradient of -1. So we know our gradient is going to be going down that way because we have a negative gradient, right? Okay, but we can't just draw our straight line like we do normally because we have our new restriction between -3 and 1. Okay, so it can't be, and this is both x values because domain, remember, is our x values because it's our input values. So between the x values of -3 and 1, so if this is 1 over here and this is -3 over here, we need to think about what's going to happen at both of these points with our straight line, okay? So we know it's going to carry on, and when our straight line is at -3, because our bracket told us that it was included, we end our line by placing a solid round dot. Okay? Remember when we had to draw our number lines and it was an included value, we would draw a solid dot, and if it was an excluded value, we'd draw a circular dot with no coloring in. So at the 1, what do you think is going to happen? If it's not included, because that's what our bracket says, at the 1, we're going to end our line with an open circle to show that that's the end of it. Okay. Maybe we should fill in some more information about this graph, because right now we just have a y-intercept. I think what we need to do is we need to fill in our endpoints as well. Okay? So this endpoint here we know has an x value of -3. So we know it's -3, we just don't know the y value. Okay? And we know that this point over here has an x value of +1. We know that okay? We just don't know the y value. So what we're going to do is we're just going to sub in our x values to our original equation, and we're going to get our y value. Okay, so let's do x is equal to -3 first. So we go y is equal to 3 minus -3. Okay, I just subbed it into my original equation, and I'm putting it in brackets because of my negatives. It can get kind of tricky. Okay, so we get y is then equal to 3 plus 3, which is 6. Okay, so we get -3, 6 as our point there. And let's do our last point here. Y is equal to 3 minus 1, which means y is then equal to 2. So we get our 2 points that we can draw there. Okay. Now that we've sketched our graph, which was the first question, our second question asks us, what is the range of f of x? Remember, f of x is just a way of saying what is the range of this graph here, because our graph is labeled f of x. Okay, so the range, if we remember, is talking about our output values or our y values, okay? So now we have to look. What y values does this graph go through? It definitely goes through any y value from here, which is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, oh sorry, 2. Once it gets to the y value of 2, it stops, and we're not going to carry on. Okay, so we know it's between 6 and 2. But remember, we're not including our 2. Okay? So we also read our values from smallest to biggest. Okay? So we always go from 1 to 6 or from -3 to 2. So here we're going to be starting with 2. So our y values go from 2 to 6. Okay? So our range of f of x is equal to, now remember, we don't include our 2, so it's a curly bracket, from 2 to 6, and 6 is now in a square bracket, okay, because that is included as part of our diagram. Okay, so that is our first example. I'm going to do another example with us now. I just want to erase what's on this board. And then I'll move us over. Does anyone have any questions about this yet? Let's see. So, okay, no one has any questions? Okay. I'm just going to move us over. Okay. Let's calculate the equation. Calculate the equation of the straight line, okay, I'm using a lot of abbreviations, calc equation, straight line, through -2 and -1, and 1, 2. Okay, So what we have here is we have 2 points, okay? And we have to calculate the equation of the straight line. So they tell us it's a straight line, which gives us a lot of information already, because we know the equation of a straight line. We know it is y equals mx plus c. Okay? Now we need to figure out our gradients. Our x's and y's, we don't know either, and we don't know our c. Okay, so we actually have to plug in a lot of things. But there's a couple of ways we can approach it. Okay, so we can solve it by doing simultaneous equations. That's one option. So let's do that. What we can do is we can substitute our 2 points into our equation, okay? So our first equation will be -1 equals m times -2 plus c. That's our first equation. And our next equation, I'm going to plug in my second points. 2 is equal to m times 1 plus c. Okay? I'm just going to rearrange my second equation quickly and my first equation so that we can solve. Okay? So my first equation, I'm going to make it 2m minus 1 is equal to c. I just took this over to the other side, so it became positive. Okay? 2m minus 1 equals c. And then I'm also going to take over my m to that side. So that becomes 2 minus m is equal to c. Okay, so all I've done is rearrange these 2 equations. So this is my new 1, and this is my new 2. Okay, it's the same equation. Now I'm going to equate them, so I'm going to let them equal to each other. Okay, so we have 2m minus 1 is equal to 2 minus m. Okay, because they're both equal to c, so I can let them equal to each other. Okay, 2m minus 1. We can take our 1 over to that side, and we can take our n over to that side, and then we can work it out. So 2m plus m is going to be 3m is equal to 2 plus 1, which is 3. So m is going to be equal to 1. I divide this by 3, I divide this by 3, and I get m is equal to 1. Okay? Now that we know what m is, we can plug that into our original equation and work out what c is. Okay? Just one of our original equations, so we can work out, let's plug it into 1. So sub into 1. Then we get 2 times 1 minus 1 is equal to c. 2 minus 1 is equal to 1. So therefore, c is equal to 1. Okay, so if we had to write out our whole equation, it would be y is equal to 1, which is m, x plus 1, which is our c. So y equals x plus 1 is our equation. Okay, if we think about this for a couple of minutes, we can think of a few other ways we could have figured this out. Okay, so because we were given 2 points originally, we would know that we have 1 point and 2 points, and they would have to be connected together, right? And those 2 points would therefore have a gradient, and we can work out the gradient between those 2 points. We can work out the gradient between point, we can call this A, and we can call this B, okay? M for gradient is just our y's minus our x's, okay? So we could do 2 minus minus 1, 2 minus minus 1 over 1 minus minus 2, which gives us 2 plus 1 is 3 over 1 plus 2, which is 3. So that's 3 over 3, which is equal to 1, okay? That's what we got for our m anyway, when we worked it out using simultaneous equations. This is also just another way of figuring out m. Once we have m, we just substitute it back into our equation and we work out what C is. So that was just two different ways of getting to the same answer. Also, we could have used the other form of your straight line equation, but that's not necessary because there's so many other ways you can do it. Okay, does anyone have any questions on this? Okay, so we've talked about how to draw a straight line if we restrict the domain. Okay, so that's if we give it certain boundaries that it has to be between. Okay, obviously if we're talking about the domain, we're talking about restricting your x values, and if we're talking about our range, we're talking about restricting our y values. Okay, I would like you guys to do exercise 7.4 for homework, and I will check you tomorrow to do our summary on functions, where I'm going to go over all the different types of functions there are: parabola, hyperbola, exponential, linear. Yeah, so hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments.